But I don't think the American people really understood it, or how incompetent the government was until Katrina. Until they could see it right here on our own soil, and you all in Houston who met many of those people and hosted them and tried to take care of them in the aftermath, you know how incompetent that government was. And really, since 2004, people have been trying to warn about excessive liquidity, too much credit, too much debt. Books written in 2005, 2006, they're replete with the warnings of how America is headed for trouble, with $1 trillion held in accounts by the government of China, with foreigners buying up 80% of the debt that we're using to finance the country, with Americans sinking ever deeper into debt for credit cards, for automobiles, for buying homes, with an inflating home market. And you read those books now, and I was reading one over the weekend. The guy's warned, this was written in 2005, he says, if anything ever happens to the inflating value of homes in America, well, it's happened. And we're living in the middle of an incredible financial meltdown, and I'm very glad that the House and the Senate passed that bill, the so-called TARP bill, but really all that did was start the process, and we don't know where that process is going to end. But we know that we're looking at some tough times ahead, even tougher than we've had economically. It's been 8 long years and 4 crises now. Every one of these crises has about the same characteristics. There are warnings from experts. There are people knocking on the doors. There was Richard Clark before 9/11. There was Senator Bob Graham warning before we went into Iraq. There were James Lee Witt warning about don't tear apart the FEMA agency and put it in Homeland Security, and a lot of people warning about that. Lots of experts warning about the dangers of too much debt in the economy. Lots of warnings. Second characteristic is a president who never gets personally involved in the problem, gives speeches, delegates it to someone else, doesn't know the details, doesn't put his hands on it, and a set of ideas which undergird the president in his hands-off approach and have led this nation astray for 8 long years. It's really tempting to be right here in Texas and blame it all on George W. Bush. Listen, I'm all for accountability. And you know what? He's not going to get reelected in November. But it's bigger than one man's failure. This is the failure of a body of ideas. And that's why it's so important that we change the leadership in Washington from the top to the bottom to get new ideas in 2008. We can't afford any more of the bad ideas. You know in general what these bad ideas are, but I want you to use this analogy. I want you to go out and find the independents and find the people who treat politics like I treat the World Series. You know, in June you're still thinking about basketball and who's going to win the NBA, and in the summer you're watching the Olympics, and in late September football season starts, and sometime around early October you say, isn't there a World Series or something? And there are people just now starting to say, you know, there's been a couple of debates and stuff. Isn't there an election coming up this year and so forth? I know you don't believe that because you're deeply in it, but there are millions of Americans who are just now beginning to focus on these issues. I want you to tell them it's 4 crises in 8 years, and here are some of the bad ideas that underlie those crises. In terms of national security, the idea that you can simply use force whenever and wherever as a first choice to keep America safe. The idea that somehow America is so unique in the world that anywhere we go, people are going to lay down in front of us and say, oh God, thank you for bringing the Americans here, and please keep them here, we love them. The idea that somehow in this world that we can do no wrong and every other nation can do no right if they oppose us. That idea of American exceptionalism that I heard Sarah Palin express, I'm very proud of America, don't get me wrong. I mean, I went to Vietnam, I served there, I came home on a stretcher, I stayed with the United States Army, I love this country, but just a bunch of human beings in here. No matter what Sinfronia has to say about God, and I do believe in the good Lord, people make mistakes. And we're no better than our own sense of humility on this. Look, I heard George W. Bush in 2000 or 1999 say America needed a humbler foreign policy. I don't know what happened to it once he got in the White House. But there's a collection of bad ideas about national security that have gotten us into a war where we spent over $600 billion, where we've lost 4,100 dead, where we've made more enemies than friends in the world, and where Osama bin Laden is still on the loose. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that's wrong. Those are bad ideas. Throw them out. You can turn to the economy and find the same collection of bad ideas. First of all, it's the idea that, hey, the market is supreme. The market always makes the right decision. Maybe it does if there's really such thing as a free market, but I've never seen a free market that didn't require some scorekeeping, some record keeping, and some umpires and some people to regulate it and make sure it's fair. There's lots of stuff going on in this economy that has subsidies in it, that's not free, it's not open competition, it's just a question of whose side it tilts to. So the idea, you know, that the Republicans pick up is this Ronald Reagan idea, you know, government's not the solution, it's part of the problem. Sure. That whole idea is why we continue to get Americans deeper and deeper and deeper in debt. And despite the warnings, the government said, hey, look, we never met a deregulation we didn't like. There was John McCain a couple of years ago preaching deregulation. A new Treasury Secretary came in 2007. And the most important single message he could give to America is, hey, let's deregulate some more. There's too many restrictions on Wall Street. You don't hear Hank Paulson saying that today, do you? It's a lot of bad ideas like trickle-down economics. You know, the truth is that we live in a society of middle Americans. I mean, Americans are the consumption engine of the world. It's what families do. 70% of our GDP is built on consumption. And as late as 1990, we were saving 8% of our national income in America. Now we're dissaving at the rate of 1.5% or 2% of our national income. We're into negative saving in America. Everything from the government down to the consumer down to the homeowners is deeply in debt. The Republicans talk about an ownership society. But what their ideas have created is an indebtedness society. It's hands-off government, devil take the hindmost, climb up the ladder and pull it up after you. It's a process of concentrating wealth in the hands of a few and leaving many who are struggling with 2 and 3 jobs per family and seeing themselves constantly losing ground. And it is wrong, 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 and we have to fix it.